So Warframe's new song has been making some waves. It's an extremely catchy song, but it's also extremely emotive, being both melancholic and epic simultaneously. The song is a metaphorical interpretation of Vala's PTSD, her loss, and her quest for vengeance, which she knows will ultimately claim her life. I thought it could be worth analysing the lyrics so that we can fully understand the meaning of it, and therefore get a better understanding of Vala's mindset when she was composing this song. So let us start with the chorus before we go through each verse in turn, as it gives us an understanding of the song's main theme and what it's actually trying to get across.
Sisters below, below, we're going where the winds don't blow. Yes, we're all bound down to the deep, and we'll all be sleeping in the cold below, below, sleeping in the cold below.
So firstly, she directs her song towards her sisters, and it might be worth getting Vala to give us the context to this song.
I was working in an exosuit when the Tempestarii destroyed Lucretia platform. I drifted for days among the frozen fragments of my crew. My sisters. I dreamed their dead, gaping mouths were singing with me yet.
So the death of her sisters has weighed on her deeply. She most likely has survivor guilt, which can be described as the following: a mental condition that occurs when a person believes they have done something wrong by surviving a traumatic or tragic event when others did not, often feeling self-guilt. Not only this, but she was stuck amongst the corpses of her comrades for several days, drifting amongst them with their frozen bodies around her, which can only have been traumatic and damaging to her psyche. This is further cemented by the fact that she imagined that they were singing with her, despite the fact that they were dead, pointing towards some kind of trauma that she suffered during this experience. We can also presume that this is when this song was conceptualized by Vala as a method of coping when she and her sisters were floating in the void of space, and she imagined them singing together about their next journey for vengeance. So let's return to the chorus. She is talking to her dead sisters, addressing them, the crewmates who died at the Lucretia platform. She then says, "We are going where the winds don't blow." So the whole song is a sailing metaphor, and this is something you of course need to keep in mind throughout the whole analysis. Winds obviously don't blow in space as it is a vacuum, in the literal sense, but where the winds don't blow is back to the sailing metaphor. In sailing, sailors would use the expressions fair winds and following seas as an expression of good luck to fellow sailors, meaning may you have a good journey, as ships that had consistent fair winds would have a more efficient journey as their sails would always be full. Conversely, if a ship had no winds, the journey would be far tougher. So where the winds don't blow in the sense of Warframe, Vala is referencing the fact they are plunging into the void, a dangerous area where conventional space travel was made very difficult as their sails will not be full, quote unquote. Next she says, "Yes, we're all bound down to the deep and will be sleeping in the cold below, below." So again, this is a reference to the metaphorical sailing. When at sea, one of the most present dangers, obviously, was drowning in the deep cold sea. After naval battles, hundreds of bodies would sink into Davy Jones's locker. And from Wikipedia on Davy Jones's locker, I read the following. Davy Jones' locker is a metaphor for the bottom of the sea, the state of death among drowned sailors and shipwrecks. It is used as a euphemism for drowning or shipwrecks in which the sailors and ships' remains are consigned to the depths of the ocean. So in Warframe, the equivalent of the cold below is dying in the void and vacuum of space from exposure after being ejected from a ship. This is how Vala's companions actually died, as she drifted among their vacuum-exposed bodies, which had frozen from the extreme temperature of the void. So the cold below is the cold vacuum of space, but it is being referenced as the cold below as a sailing metaphor for being lost in the deep sea. This is further cemented by the sleeping in the cold below scene, where there is a watery surface, confirming the link between the cold void of space and dying in the cold depths of an ocean. So ultimately the chorus means, "My sisters, we are going to the dangerous void, where the winds don't blow. Our death is inevitable, and we will be sleeping in the void," i.e. dead in the void. Now moving on, let us look at the first verse.
So it's into the void now, me girls and me boys, from mother's hands we go. We'll be sailing to the sun till the voyage is done, then we'll be sleeping in the cold below.
Now that we've analysed the chorus, the first verse is fairly straightforward. It means we are journeying into the void, leaving our mothers behind, our families behind, and we aren't ending the voyage until we have achieved our mission, and there's a good chance that we will be dead at that point. This is just a repetition of the main themes. Vala knows that this journey into the void is extremely dangerous, and it will likely mean her death and the death of her crewmates, and she will join her dead sisters, and she's fine with that. So let's move on to verse 2.
Our sailing ships for the hard and the quick, we roll our load and go. There's a living to be made, or there's hell to pay when you're sleeping in the cold below.
This verse again keeps the sailing metaphor going, talking about the fact that the crew of her ship need to be tough and skilled, like they did have to be on sailing ships that went into difficult waters, and in this case the difficult waters are the void. There's good money involved in a dangerous journey like this, but it could also result in your death. A high risk, high reward journey.
There's a man on high with the devil in his eye and a golden hand, I'm told. It can hurt you, it can hold you, he can kick you or console you when you're sleeping in the cold below.
So verse 3, as most of you are aware, pertains to Parvos Granum, the founder of the Corpus, with his golden hand, and it happens to be my favourite verse. He is a man on high, and this reference is an allusion to Parvos' status to Vala and the other Corpus. He is almost a mythical and holy figure, a messiah type figure. Vala herself considers herself to be a follower of his, as she invokes his name a number of times during the quest. Then to have the devil in your eye means to be up to something, to have plans and machinations. We know from the email that we received from Granum at the end of the Deadlock Protocol quest that he has big plans to restructure the Corpus. So this part, the devil in your eye, refers to his plans and machinations that he has in store, and in fact we probably don't know all of his designs at this point. The last part refers to Granum's reputation to either recognising your worth and taking you under his wing, or seeing you as trash and worthless and kicking you. Vala would be an example of someone he consoles, whereas Nef Anu would be someone he kicks. This invocation does seem to be true, as Parvos sequesters Vala from her death, actually saving her life, bringing her to his pocket realm, and offering her his hand.
Oh sisters, you so wise and true, when it's my time to go, won't you lay me down under Granum crowns, and I'll be sleeping in the cold below, sleeping in the cold below.
So verse 4, Vala is talking about her death and burial. She asks her crewmates to bury her under Granum crowns, so this is just a reference to burial rites. It reflects some real life burials. In some cultures they bury people with their earthly possessions, or even in Homeric tradition, warriors would have coins placed in their eyes to pay the fare of the boatman, so that he would carry them over the river Styx into the afterlife. I really like this small verse because I see it as an attempt to passively imply aspects of Corpus culture, that an ideal burial in their culture is being buried with Granum crowns, a valuable treasure of the Corpus. So let us move on to the final verse.
Today we sail on the solar rail, for there's much we just don't know. So farewell with a kiss, then it's fast for the mist, till we're all sleeping in the cold below.
So today we sail on the solar rail, for there's much we just don't know, to me is a reference of how the solar rail are the established shipping lanes in the world of Warframe, and that outside of these lanes it is dangerous to travel. Solar rails are essentially established Orcan lanes that boost ships from one sector to another on a straight path, whereas ships beyond this are at the mercy of untamed space and without established routes to follow. So when they go hard for the mist, they are leaving the solar rails to untamed void space on a suicide mission, the mist being an interpretation or euphemism for the void. So ultimately I see the song as an ode to Vala's fallen sisters, that Vala and her new crew are committed to completing their mission of vengeance, even unto their deaths as they sail into the wild sectors of the void, hunting down the Tempestarii. It is a reflection of her trauma, witnessing her crewmates' deaths and having to be the only one to survive while their bodies floated around her in a sort of floating graveyard. She's going to where the winds don't blow, and she doesn't intend to return unless she's either avenged her sisters, or she sleeps alongside them in the void of space. And she interprets this all as a sailing metaphor, as if she's going into dangerous waters, and that she'll end up dying in the sea below. So thanks guys, that's my interpretation of Sleeping in the Cold Below. Obviously an incredible song with great feels. Just wanted to kind of look a little bit more carefully at the words to kind of understand the sailing metaphor that's going on and what Vala actually means by it, and what it can tell us about Vala herself. If you like this video, please consider subscribing, as I do Warframe content. But until next time guys, I will see you in the cold below. Take care.
Sisters below, below. We're going where the winds don't blow. Yes, we're all bound down to the deep, and we'll all be sleeping in the cold below, below. Sleeping in the cold below. Our sailing ships for the hard and the quick, we roll our load